Welcome to Right at the Wire. This is our inaugural episode. The intent here is to handicap the Derby preps leading up to the Triple Crown, as well as handicap and analyze the significant stakes races that coincide with the thoroughbred racing season. I hope to impart my knowledge and my experience. I've been handicapping for over 20 years, and I'd like to get your opinions as well. And between the two of us, hopefully we can expand our knowledge base and improve our ability to pick winners, which is what it's all about. So without further ado, I want to get into the races, and I know you don't want to look at me in my garage, but when you smoke cigars, allowances have to be made, so I apologize for the appearance. Hopefully we'll progress along and we'll be able to change that. So let's take a look at the Southwest Stakes and see what we see. Okay, let's take a look at the Southwest Stakes. It's a grade 3. It's a mile and 16th, and it's at Oaklawn Park, and for my money, it is the beginning of the Derby prep season. It's the first significant step. The LeCompte was last weekend, but the Risen Star and Louisiana Derby, the ones I think you want to be thinking about. To me, it's the Southwest is the one where the season kicks off. Let's take a look at the field. Number 1 is Sun Thunder. He's trained by Kenny McPeak. Kenny McPeak likes to bring them along slowly, but this one has demonstrated some precocity. He broke, his first outing, he lost, but in a key race, and the two he lost to determinedly just won an allowance at Fairgrounds over Tappett's Conquest, one of Cox's Derby hopefuls. And Chopper's Revenge had an excellent maiden win. So that wasn't chopped liver. He ran against it. He did pretty well. Broke really slow, but the fact that he showed acceleration late gives you the idea that 2 turns would be in his wheelhouse moving forward. And that's exactly what happened. He went his next effort in the maiden. His acceleration right just before the turn, he just blew this field away, and there was no doubt whatsoever about who was the boss that day. So let's take a look at it, and you can see he's in the 5 hole. And it's a good-sized field too, so which is always good. And I don't know if we need to listen to Vic Stauffer right now, so we won't. But you see, Sun Thunder broke well, and a little bit of traffic early, but he's unhurried. But he's a little more forwardly placed, so you can tell that he's getting it. And so he's just raiding in the back, a little jostling, but he just got a good ground-saving trip. And you got a 73-1 shot out in the lead, so they sent him more than likely. But 23-1 is a decent fraction. And the mile is a cool distance because you really pretty much got to be all out all the way through to win it. So it's a really good tightener, and it's a good test of a horse's ability. 47-2, again, good fractions, and they're moving pretty good clip up front. And you can see just very shortly that you can see right about there is when Cabrera's asking him, and look at what happens. I mean, he just inhales this field. He's swung out 4 wide, and he's gone, and he just left everybody in his wake. He's not even, Cabrera's not even urging him a whole lot. Gives him a little bit of he's doing a little bit of hand riding down the stretch just to kind of keep him focused. But look at him. I mean, he changed leads right on cue. He looks awful good. He just, there's never a doubt in this one. So there's definitely something there with this one, and I really like him in this spot with all the speed signed on. He could very well get the meltdown that's just going to be right in his wheelhouse. So hopefully we'll get a decent price. He has the hint of a wise guy horse, so he might get bet down a little bit. But when you got Arabian Night in there at even money on the morning line, chances are he's going to go down further than that. So we might actually get some value. So I really like Sun Thunder in this spot. Number 2, Corona Bolt, is a horse got a lot of buzz around him, and deservedly so. Look what he did in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, he got a 97, pretty much won for fun, geared down. There was never a challenge to him. He's by Brad Cox, Stone Street Stables, excellent connections, and he's got Flavian Pratt to come fly in for this one. He's by Boltioro, who's proven to be a really, really good sire early on. He had a lot of nice 2-year-olds last year. And Quiet American underneath. So 2 turns is a little bit of a question, but I mean, I think a mile and a 16th he can do. The question is whether or not he can do a mile and a quarter. But he's definitely got quality, and I think he's going to present a challenge to Arabian Night on the front end, and that's not something that you see Baffert horses get too often. A lot of times with these 3-year-olds, he sends them to the lead and they're gone, and there's nobody everybody's afraid to go try and go get them. This one, I think, definitely will present a challenge, and it'll be a big test for Arabian Night. I think Corona Bolt is a factor here, and he could very well be there in the end. He's got quality, and looks like he's pretty classy. So, like Corona Bolt. Jace's Road, the 3, is interesting. He's another one by Cox. West Point Thoroughbreds, great connections there. Quality Road, Sylvia Deputy underneath, so 2 turns should be okay for him. You can see he's had 3 mile and a 16th races, and he won his maiden first asking, which is always a good sign. The Street Sense we could draw a line through because obviously lost the rider, so there wasn't much running done there. And the Iroquois, Curly Jack, I don't think we're going to hear much more from this year. So, I mean, yeah, okay. He's still got a 3rd. It was closer favoring, so maybe we can forgive him a little bit for that one. The Gun Runner, he definitely validated himself, no question. Again, our old friend Determinedly, who everybody seems to like to beat. He won for fun pretty much. I mean, he was on the front end and gone, and so he's definitely demonstrated his quality there. I don't think he's going to want to do that in this field, but he has proven that he can rate a little bit. So I think he can be sitting off the pace, and if he takes another step forward, he could very well factor in the end. Weston Ghent, this is another one. Wayne Lucas is notorious for putting 3-year-olds on the Derby trail who don't belong. And the best example I can give is 2005. He had Going Wild. The horse finished last in all 3 Triple Crown races. He's got Christian Torres on him, who's a leading rider at Oak Lawn. But you look at this horse's running lines, and they're just not very impressive. Yes, he's faced some good horses, but he hasn't challenged any of them. And Hurricane JJ, I mean, he, in the optional 100 claimer, I mean, he was basically a rabbit in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and gone early. And he finished 3rd to him, and that's just about the best he's done. So they had to drop him to a maiden claimer for him to break his maiden, and he only got a 52. Yeah, all right, he got an 80 in the last one, but he was in it for very briefly, and till victory formation basically said enough was enough. He's a clunk up at very best in this one, and he's a total toss for me. Frosted Departure is interesting in that he really hasn't demonstrated that he wants 2 turns. I mean, the Street Sense and the British Futurity, he didn't factor in either of them. He's got sprint pedigree. You got to wonder if maybe he's in there to be a rabbit for Sun Thunder, because he is trained by McPeak as well. Really, I don't think he measures up in any way. And you see, he did have an 82, but where was it? It was at 6 furlongs. And that's where I think this horse wants to be. I think you'll be seeing him in the Woody Stevens later in the year. But he's a toss in this one for me. Here's the now horse, Arabian Night, number 6. He's by Uncle Mo, and he's by owned by Zaydan Stables, who had Medina Spirit and Taba, have made a lot of noise recently, and he did cost $2.3 million, and looked every bit of the part in his maiden debut. I mean, he won for fun. He blew that field away, including determinedly again. He's got all the Baffert markings of a Derby contender. I'm a little. I have some concerns about his two-turn pedigree. He's got Sprinter on the bottom, and Uncle Mo was pretty much a 1/8 of a mile was like the top end for him. So I don't know. I mean, he's got a lot of class. He's got a lot of speed, and I think in this race, if he gets in the lead, it's all over. The question is, can he handle a challenge? Because he is going to get one from Corona Bolt, and you'll have Frosted Departure pushing him along. If he passes, yeah, he's definitely a player later on. He should be. But you don't see Baffert horses challenged too often. So I think this is a big test, and if he passes, and he could very well do it, then he's a player. Red Route 1 is pretty interesting to me. Again, great connections. Winchell Thoroughbreds, who had Epicenter, Midnight Bourbon. They're always in the mix by Gunrunner and Tap It Underneath. So, I mean, he's got two turns written all over him. He's by Asmussen, who knows how to handle him on the Derby Trail. And Santana is a rider. So everything is pointing towards what Asmussen believes will be a good effort here. Interesting that he started on turf for his first two. Wouldn't you think if they really thought something of him, they would have had him on dirt right away? Just my thought. However, he's had 3 straight mile and a 16th races. I think he's there's no sin in losing to Loggins or Forte, and he did get a decent third. Street Sense might have been the mud. It was kind of a funky race. They were all in it at the end of it, so I'm not going to knock him too much on that one. But the Jockey Club is really where he showed something. He was absolutely walled off. He had nowhere to go in the stretch, and there was plenty of horse there. Had he got free, we might have had a different opinion of him. But I mean, we might not be thinking quite so highly of Instant Coffee like a lot of people do right now. So Red Route 1, I think, is one. If he takes another jump forward, could definitely factor. And I think he'll benefit from the hot pace. As you can see, he does like to rate, and I think that'll be to his advantage in this one. So Red 1, I think, is a use, mostly underneath, but I would definitely consider him. Hit Show is kind of interesting to me. I personally think he's on Brad Cox's JV. Cox has a lot of Derby contenders this year, but he's owned by Gary and Mary West, who like to have good horses and have quite a few. He's got Tap It Underneath and Candy Ride on the top. So I mean, I think he's definitely he fits the bill here. The interesting thing is, he got a 60 in his maiden, which is always nice to see, first asking, especially at 7 furlongs. But in his next race, he kind of threw in a clunker. I mean, Confidence Game, Rocket Can, 10 Days Later are all pretty good. Confidence Game just had a pretty good third in the LeCompte, and 10 Days Later and Rocket Can have factored a little bit in some of the races. But he only got a 71. He didn't really start, he made a major move forward, but he had Lasix, and he did beat Invulnerable and Protege, who aren't bad. He won very professionally. It was a solid win. I do wonder if he can take another step forward without Lasix. That's the only question I have. You have to trust Cox. He certainly knows what he's doing. But I just wonder a little bit about that. He would need a pretty good step forward to take on Corona Bolt or Arabian Night. And I think a minor share is more likely to happen, but you never know with 3-year-olds, and he definitely could make a move forward. The number 9 is El Tomate. He looks like a field filler to me. He's by Run Happy, and he did break his maiden in his first asking at 7 furlongs, which is a pretty good sign. but he only got a 65, and I don't know that he beat a whole lot. So I mean, he's certainly capable of moving forward, I think, but I don't think it's enough to factor in this race. So he's a toss for me. So if you look at this field, you have to put Arabian Night on top. I mean, there really isn't much choice in the matter. It's Bob Baffert, it's the Derby season, and he's got a 3-year-old with speed. However, I am very curious to see how he handles the challenge on the front end, and if he does, then I think that he could factor later on. You could, like I said, Frost's Departure with speed, and Corona Bolt. Then Jace's Road hanging right off of him. So I think it's a very interesting race from that perspective. I do believe they're going to get cooked on the pace. You got two horses who want it and have got all that natural speed, and that has to benefit the late runners. And if you're going to look at late runners, you got to like Sun Thunder. I think you're going to get a decent price. And I think that he will definitely be a factor late. So if we have to choose, I'll put Arabian Night on top, and Sun Thunder second, Corona Bolt third, and maybe Jace's Road fourth, with possibly Red Route 1 depending on how they run it. But that's the way it looks to me.